welcome everyone to the Anacortes City Council meeting of December 8th, 2025. I'd like to call the meeting to order. Mr. Franciac, would you take the roll, please?
Mr. Fantini.
Here.
Mr. Young.
Here.
Mr. Walters.
Here.
Ms. Cleland McGrath.
Here.
Ms. Moulton.
Here.
Mr. McDougall. Ms. Hubick.
Here.
Thank you.
Mayor Miller,
Ms. Moulton.
I move to excuse Councilmember McDougall from tonight's meeting.
Second.
Okay, a motion by Ms. Moulton and a second by Mr. Young to approve the absence of Mr. McDougall. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. All right, please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. All right, announcements and committee reports. I've got quite a few and a bunch of notes written down, so bear with me. So last week, I attended the Community Leadership Forum at Naval Air Station Whidbey Island, and just some takeaways from that one. They were doing runway repairs, which meant one of the runways was closed for most of the summer. That put most of the air traffic over Anacortes. That's fixed, but the problem is this time of year, the runways that take airplanes over Anacortes are the primary runways because the wind comes out. So still 11,000 personnel there. The Navy's still about the sixth largest employer in the state of Washington, and they do about $1.5 billion of economic activity over there. And that reminds me, yesterday was Pearl Harbor Remembrance Day, 84 years since the attack on Pearl Harbor. But in addition to the the national security they provide and Homeland Defense mission they have over there, again, a lot of folks live in Anacortes that work over there. Next, I'd like to thank Mr. Fantini for his great MC work at the tree lighting on Friday. He only gets that thanks because he did not make me sing or dance. The tree lighting was successful in spite of the wind. Also, thanks for those who participated in the parade to welcome Santa to town. So coming up on for the holidays, we will be hosting the Winter Wonderland Walk, a popular event at Washington Park. That's 5 to 8 p.m. both Friday and Saturday. So come out and enjoy some lights in our wonderful Washington Park. And then on a little more serious note, there is a flood watch for Skagit County. As you can see, it's raining a lot, and that's going through Friday afternoon, December 12th. Series of wet weather systems, atmospheric rivers across the region. So no threat of the Skagit River flooding, Anacortes directly, but we do have a water treatment plant that provides water for 56,000 customers on the Skagit River. So I want to make sure council's aware. We're making all preparations and monitoring the system. Skagit County Commissioners adopted emergency declaration earlier this afternoon. Department of Emergency Management has stood up their EOC. And so the major flooding is expected. There are two peaks in Mount Vernon. Skagit River is predicted to peak at 34 feet on Wednesday, December 10th at 4 a.m., and then again at 4 a.m. on Friday, December 12th. Again, that's based on the forecast. And on the 12th, it's forecast to be 36.01 feet. So compare that to the flood in 2021. That was 37 feet. So it's getting close. Certainly below that, our plant will be fine. But I just wanted you all to be aware that we're again monitoring the situation. The plant has everything they need. Here in the city limits, we could expect some winds 30 to 50 mile an hour gusts over the next couple of days. It's that time of year. Let's see, I think that's all my announcements, except for I have some back to more fun stuff, pride and service recognition. So if you're ready, Ms. Hsu, to take some pictures, I'm going to start with Councilmember Fantini. 1 year pride and service. You have to complete the year, and then we so. All right. Next up, Councilmember Christine Cleveland McGrath, 5 years.
Thank
You don't have to go up there.
Can I? Yeah. Thank you.
But we'll do that.
Thank you.
All right. Now, because you see some of these staff members here every night, I'm going to Miss Swetnam, 10 years. One more. Emily Shue. Anybody want to guess the years? No, I'll just tell you. 25 years. Wow. And no, it's not a Rolex. It's a backpack. All right, next up is 3A, Civil Service Commission appointments. So I'd just like to announce appointments to complete the terms for Marianne Gutierrez, who moved to be closer to family, and Mr. John Stables, who unfortunately passed away in September. So Marla Melis and Peter Allen. Their terms will be effective through December 31st, 2028, and Mr. Allen is there, and you can wave so council can see who you are. So thank you for your willingness to serve, and we generally pay you in paper clips that you can take. But so thank you for that, for your willingness to volunteer with city. All right, next up is 3B, Port City Liaison Committee report.
Mayor Miller.
Ms. Cleveland McGrath.
Thank you. We had our Port City meeting on December 2nd, last Tuesday. We discussed somewhat about the West Basin and the partnership between the city and the port, making sure that the city is reviewing all of the permitting steps and things such as that. So they are continuing to move. The port's sounds like they're going to continue to move forward with some design work. The Port Commission will review some of these easements that we're trying to work on for Market Street and 9th Street, and kind of cleaning up all of these various loose ends. So they're going to review it on December 18th. And then hopefully move forward with that. The city will actually need, as far as we understand, will also need to have a public hearing to relinquish those easements in the near future. And then, point of interest, the Planning Commission will receive the presentation for the West Basin Framework Permit on December 10th. So this Wednesday should be a good presentation by the port to the Planning Commission, which will make a recommendation and then come to City Council. And the last thing is just making sure that we continue to have a similar meeting schedule once a month, first Tuesday of the month through 2026. And that is all I have for now.
All right. Any questions for Port City? All right, next up is Planning Committee.
Mayor Miller.
Mr. Walters.
The Planning Committee met just before this meeting and talked about the pressing issue of lights in the Christmas trees downtown, or rather the absence thereof. And we talked about options examples from other communities for what they have done to light up the trees, and talked about the past history of Anacortes lighting up the trees and whatever else we might want to do or pursue in terms of downtown streetscape improvements. as part of the holiday decorations. Came to no conclusions, obviously, except that that next downtown streetscape meeting in January would definitely be one where people might weigh in for future seasons' decorations, because we do not anticipate that the Downtown Alliance, which is responsible for the decorations this year, is going to change them during this season. This is all prospective for next year.
Any questions for planning? All right, next, Public Safety Committee.
Mayor Miller.
Mr. Fantini.
The Public Safety Committee met on 12/2/2025. We started out with a presentation on the new police boat, and that is going to be coming to council in the next week or so. It was really good to learn about the funding, a lot of which comes from registration fees. There's also, to get some of the grant funding, there's some educational requirements for some community educational programs, not something that we have to create, but something that can be pushed out from our social media. Also, there's a lot of training classes that are offered for law enforcement on the boats, and the classes are free for law enforcement, so that's always really good. We talked about that the community policing, the Citizens Academy, is going to be coming back here. And also, the annual report from the police should be coming to us in February, which will be earlier than we got it this year, so that'll be great to see. But yes, definitely look forward to that police boat presentation coming to council here in the next couple of weeks. From the fire department, the SAFER grant has been accepted. That period of performance starts on March 23rd. Currently, we're hiring. With that SAFER grant, sorry, I'm deciphering my notes here. With that SAFER grant, we will then have 4 firefighters that we would be hiring for, but again, 3 of those are funded through the SAFER grant positions. The goal is to get everyone onboarded by the 23rd. Also, we talked a little bit about we reviewed the level of service standards that are going to be coming forward in the comprehensive plan. That's something that we did look at already as a council, but Chief brought it again just so that we would be reminded of what they are. Also, kind of something really positive to point out is that we did have that accident that cost the life of the teacher at the high school, but our fire department was able to send the support from a peer firefighter to provide support for the teachers, the students, and the counselors, because there is a peer support program within the fire department, and so they were able to offer that for use to teachers, counselors at the school, and so that was a really great thing to happen. I might have missed 1 or 2 things. I'm not sure if either Ms. Hubick or Ms. Cleland McGrath would like to chime in, but more than welcome to.
Any chime in or questions for the Public Safety Committee? All right, any other announcements or committee reports I may have missed?
Mayor Miller.
Ms. Moulton.
Thank you. On Saturday, there was an Association of Washington Cities training that people could attend online. It's for elected officials and new ones, and then refresher every 4 years is recommended for city council members and mayors. And in person was Councilmember Fantini, Councilmember Walters, and Councilmember-elect Luke Courier. I was there, and it was a really good all-day training, and it was a great opportunity to reconnect with people that we may have known already, but also to meet new council members and mayors from around the Northwest region. And just kind of go through that together. It was one of those really good networking opportunities with a lot of great information about roles and responsibilities, open public meetings, et cetera, et cetera. It was a very full day and very, very worthwhile.
All right, any other ones? All right, we'll move on to item 4, public comment. This is an opportunity for every member of the public who wishes to address the council on anything that is not on our agenda, and I didn't have anybody sign up, but I'll make sure nobody has anything. All right, checking online. Okay, we'll move on to item 5, our consent agenda, items A and B. Council.
Mayor Miller,
Ms. Hubick.
make a motion to approve the consent agenda items A and B.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Hubick, a second by Mr. Fantini to approve a consent agenda. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. On to item number 6. First one is 6A. 6A is Resolution 3191, 2026 lodging tax allocations. This is a discussion item with possible action, and Mr. Walters or Mr. Coleman, Mr. Walters, as the chair, you're going to take this one?
Yes,
Okay.
thank you. The Lodging Tax Advisory Committee met 3 times this year. We got a little bit of a late start due to difficulty in finding a third hotelier to serve on the committee. But once we appointed the full committee, we met, reviewed our strategic plan, and then reviewed the proposed applications for this coming year. The committee ultimately recommended an allocation for the annual events very similar to what we recommended last year. And in addition, we recommended $366,000 for the design work, our share of the design work for the proposed Port City Event Center. Lodging tax revenue has been reasonably strong despite the fact that we don't have the Sydney Ferry anymore, despite the fact that we're seeing reduced Canadian tourism. Importantly, the hoteliers on the committee provided valuable insight into which events are actually generating bed nights, which is pretty difficult to determine otherwise. We ask applicants to submit numbers on how many tourists stay overnight, how many tourists come from more than 50 miles away, but there are some data issues associated with what applicants submit. So we rely heavily on the sense of hoteliers, and we had at least one hotelier go back through their records during the events and identify which nights that they were fullest. And the committee has really, in the last couple of years, moved toward funding at higher levels events that meet our criteria in our strategic plan, but also that actually result in bed nights. Now, that's not the only criteria upon which events can be funded, but it's clearly what we're prioritizing. So presented in your packet are copies of all the applications and a resolution that would award that would show the requested and awarded amount for each of those, as well as the capital project design work. Importantly, council has the ability to select from these recommended applicants or send back the matter to the Lodging Tax Advisory Committee for reconsideration of the amount.
All right, any questions? All right, well explained then, motion perhaps.
Mayor Miller,
Ms. Moulton.
I move City Council approve Resolution 3191 awarding 2026 lodging tax funds.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Moulton, a second by Ms. Hubick to approve Resolution 3191. Any additional discussion?
Mayor Miller?
Mr. Fantini?
Just a quick question. On the event center design for the 366, is that part of the estimated 8 million project cost, or is that in addition to?
It
It is part of the estimated
Perfect.
total project cost.
Great, thank you.
That's what I recall as well. All right, any other discussion?
Mayor Miller.
Mr. Young?
No, just, the Lodging Tax Advisory Committee and all of the work that goes in is sometimes a thankless task in the sense of if you're funded, that's wonderful, and then if you're not funded with your great idea, that's not so good. I do think, though, that I'd like to put out there that as we begin to work even closer with our hoteliers and trying to make sure events that they have full rooms and everything else, it would be helpful if we had greater data from them. I know that there are probably things that they may not want to reveal, like how many rooms are filled at what point, and it's, all of that is deriving some of the money that's coming to the lodging tax. But I do think at some point we should begin to look at how we can better have a greater pulse of what's happening in those hotel rooms and where. And if there are holes in the market that needs to be plugged. Because again, when there are big events in the valley and people wanting to come to Anacortes, many times it's filled up. And so the question becomes, is there room for any others? And I think that if we as a city could have a better grasp of that, it would be very helpful. Thank you.
Any additional discussion? Motion by Ms. Moulton and a second by Ms. Ubik. Mr. Franciac, take the vote, please.
Mr. Young,
Yes.
Mr. Walters,
Yes.
Ms. Cleland McGrath,
Yes.
Ms. Moulton,
Yes.
Ms. Hubick,
Yes.
Mr. Fantini.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, item 6C is a contract award, social worker agreement. Oh, wait. Oh, sorry. I should have figured it out with Ms. Peck standing there, that I skipped over 6B. Resolution 3193, updating the unified fee schedule. Discussion item with possible action. Ms. Peck, you're all ready to go.
Awesome, thank you. Hello, Mayor, Council, and members of the public. So I'm here to talk to you about Resolution number 3193, which is our annual update to our unified fee schedule. Due to some complexities this year, I put together a quick slide presentation to help kind of guide us through what's in the unified fee schedule. So the first item is CPI, and typically we utilize the October annual CPI update. Unfortunately, due to the government shutdown, October was not available and it is not going to be published. So what we did is our written rules allow us to find and utilize other comparable indexes. So we looked at the 12-year average of August and October, and what we found is in total, the variance was very small. So what we've done is in the unified fee schedule, the rate we've utilized is August over August. So you'll see it's the 2.8245% is the annual CPI increase. And you're welcome to ask questions as we go, if you have them. All right, the next item that was a significant change on the unified fee schedule was our city utility tax. If you remember through the budgeting process, this tax is going from 7% to 9%. The impact is on our residents, our commercial, and our refinery customers. Also talked about during our revenue hearing and during our budgeting process was increasing our storm rate by $5 per month. The base rate for 2026 on the unified fee schedule is represented at $21.87, up from the $15.80 that we had in 2025. Total impact is $6.07. That's broken out by the base rate increase of $5, CPI increase of 59 cents, and then the city utility tax increase of 48 cents. So in total, a monthly bill for a customer is going to go up $6.07. When we take a look at sewer is a little bit more complex because there's a base rate and there's also a consumption component to your city utility billing. So the residential base rate is going in 2026 up to $53.05, up from $47.58 in 2025, with a difference of $5.47. Similar to how I explained storm, the base rate is going up $2.86. CPI is $1.42, and the city utility impact is $1.19. Now, when we think about the residential consumption, I used a rate of $3.35, Consumption varies based on your household and your utilization or consumption of water. But based on an average consumption of 335, which was mine, household of two adults, 2 dogs, it's $1.45. All right, the next one is a little bit more interesting. So we, through the Parks Impact Fee Study that's ongoing right now, we were able to determine that somehow in the move from 2023 to 2024, the 3 impact rates for commercial, for industrial services, and then government educational permitting was just wrong. We went back and tried to determine what caused it. We couldn't. So what we've done is we've gone back and recalculated the rates, and what we have in 2026 is what they truly should be. We did go back and looked at the permit applications, or the permits that were processed from January 1st, 2024 through today. It looks like there's only an impact of 1 permit that was issued, and the dollar impact there is roughly $6,600. All right, and then finally, for solid waste, based on some input from our operations department, we've added a garbage tote cleaning fee of $25 to the unified fee schedule.
Mayor Miller?
Mr. Fantini, yes, we used to get that for free.
We did.
And I didn't know that.
Oh, okay. I was just wondering, like, how, so is that a one-time fee for all year?
It's a per time cleaning fee.
How many times a year are we, and do you have the choice to clean your own, or?
You do.
You do.
So at any point in time, any resident can go out and do a cleaning of their own garbage tote. What's been occurring is folks have been requesting a cleaning by our our solid waste services. That requires pickup of the tote, placing of a new tote, bringing that tote back to the operations center, cleaning it, and then getting it ready to go back into service. So it's a bit of a process, and they've determined that it's a service that we've been doing for free that really we shouldn't be.
But it's request-driven?
Yeah, it's request-driven,
Perfect.
yes.
Okay, thank you.
That's correct. All right, so that's what I have for you to outline the changes in the proposed effective January 1st, 2026 rates on the unified fee schedule.
All right, yeah, none of us like having to increase rates, but if you look at the acronym of CUT, cut, it's not a cut. It's just to be clear on that on the slides. But before I turn it over to council, any member of the public wish to address council on this item? Okay, council.
Mayor Miller.
Mr. Young.
Ms. Peck, I always appreciate how your attention to detail and the clarity with which you're trying to give council as well as the public clear information about what the meanings are and how its effect on the bottom line is also effect. So I really appreciate that a lot. Do we know generally how much revenue may be generated by this from the various segments?
We haven't done a new analysis yet,
Okay.
Mr. Young, so it's going to be based on what we did during the budgeting process. I think it was around $400,000 for each of the utilities, and I believe it was around 600 maybe for the utility tax.
I think I remember some. Okay. Yeah. No, I just really appreciate this. I know it's tough times for all of us. It really is. But I appreciate the way you've presented this, and of course, the boss over there and the boss over here.
Of course.
So thank you.
Mayor Miller?
Mr. Fantini.
I'm just wondering too, with the fee changes, do they, obviously they go into effect and people will see the increases on their bill, but do we do anything like provide on our website or any an inclusion where it says, hey, this is what it used to be, this is what it is now? Like, obviously it takes effect, but how do like the constituents find out about it?
So if the council is to approve the resolution this evening, our plan and our hope is to get this on the back of the bills that go out in the next billing cycle, which this fee won't be, the fees on that bill won't be impacted by the change, but we're hoping to give folks a heads up, and then we'll also post it on our website.
Perfect, thank you.
Of course.
Ma'am, Ms. Cleland.
Mayor Miller?
Ms. Cleland McGrath.
Yeah, I think this makes a lot of sense, and thank you for the presentation. So I make a motion to approve Resolution 3193, updating the unified fee schedule.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Cleland McGrath and a second by Mr. Young to approve Resolution 3193. Any additional discussion? Mr. Franciac, vote please.
Mr. Walters.
Yes.
Ms. Cleland McGrath.
Yes.
Ms. Moulton.
Yes.
Ms. Hubick.
Yes.
Mr. Fantini.
Yes.
Mr. Young.
Yes.
Motion carries.
All right, thank you. Now I'm at item 6C, Contract Award, Social Worker Agreement. This is an action item, and Chief Floyd will be presenting.
Good evening, Mayor Miller, members of council, and members of the audience. Tonight, we're asking for council approval for our agreement with the Family Center. This is renewing a pre-existing contract for this Family Center to provide social service outreach, referrals that are coming from various city departments to the Family Center. This is an effort to not only address individuals in our community that are unhoused, but also as a preventative measure to step in when there's individuals that are in danger of becoming unhoused because of whatever circumstances they're facing. This was in the budget proposal from the police department for the budget that was approved earlier in November. And also of note, Chief Harris is currently working on grant opportunities that are out there available to fire agencies that will help return our grant amount, or our contract amount for the Family Center to the $60,000 that we've had in previous years. I believe that those grant awards will be announced in the early part of next year. It's currently in process through the Behavioral Corps of Washington in partnership with University of Washington. Other than the amount of the contract, there's no substantive changes from previous contract years. And I think that it's been quite apparent the success we've had working with the Family Center to address the needs of those in our community that are in danger of becoming unhoused. I just ask that the council renew this contract.
All right, questions, comments?
Mayor Miller?
Mr. Fantini.
We've had a lot of discussion around this and opioid funding settlement. Unless there's more discussion to have, I move that City Council authorize the mayor to sign contract 26007 APD 001 with Anacortes Family Center in the amount of $30,000.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Fantini, a second by Mr. Young to approve the contract as presented. Additional discussion?
Mayor Miller?
Ms. Cleland McGrath.
I will abstain from voting because I serve on the board of the Family Center.
Thank you. All right, any other discussion? Mr. Franciac, vote please.
Ms. Cleland McGrath.
Abstain.
Ms. Moulton.
Yes.
Ms. Hubick.
Yes.
Mr. Fantini.
Yes.
Mr. Young.
Yes.
Mr. Walters.
Yes.
Motion carries.
All right, next up is 6D, interlocal agreement with Skagit County for vessel registration fees. This is a discussion item with possible action, and Chief Floyd gets to remain there whenever you're ready.
Okay, Mayor and members of council, you'll recall this item was brought before you previously last month, and we took this back, provided some additional information and some updated information to the Public Safety Committee. That was the meeting that was held on December 2nd. And as a result of that meeting, there were a few questions that the Public Safety Committee requested answers to, which have been included in the slides that we have for you tonight. So, working through with the coordination with the state parks, the primary functions of our marine program are public outreach, education, enforcement, and accident prevention. We work to reduce boating-related injuries and fatalities, promoting safe, responsible recreation across our local waterways. Our funding comes from a few different sources. First of all, the Washington State Parks. They fund marine programs for law enforcement agencies statewide. And in 2025, they had about just shy of $1.6 million of pass-through funding that was received from the U.S. Coast Guard for distribution to state parks approved programs. They also have vessel registration fees that are collected by vessel owners when they renew their annual registration. Those funds are distributed by county to the 39 counties in our state and are approximately $1.3 million. The vessel registration fees are given to the individual counties. Those fees are then distributed to municipalities within the counties that have approved marine safety programs. The interlocal agreement before you tonight with Skagit County will provide the Anacortes Police Department with about 30% of the vessel registration fees that are allocated to Skagit County. This amount's consistent with our last vessel registration fee agreement that we had with the county, most recently in 2009. We expect the amount of these vessel registration fees to be in the neighborhood of $15,000. It's estimated that in 2026, we'll receive another $15,000 from the Washington State Parks through their grant funding that's passed through from the Coast Guard that I mentioned previously. These both are in addition to our 2025 funding request for our cross-border smuggling interdiction efforts through FEMA. In our request for 2025, we've included fuel, vessel maintenance costs, and those are in addition to the officer overtime costs that we've been receiving through this grant since 2018. I mentioned there was a few questions from the Public Safety Committee that we had added to our slides from when the Public Safety Committee received this presentation previously. Those questions were regarding the amount or the cost of insurance for our vessel, questions about minimum staffing, and what the mooring location would be. So with our funding from the three sources that I just mentioned, we expect our marine unit to be able to operate independently from the general fund. Our insurance cost annually is about $222, according to Mr. Ludeman as our fleet manager. And as I've mentioned numerous times, this would not affect our minimum staffing levels, taking folks off the road for the 911 calls that we've committed to increasing our level of service for. All the pools of available funds for this program, in addition to covering maintenance and operating costs, also are eligible to be used for officer overtime to be able to operate this program. As far as mooring locations, we're still exploring options. So there is the city-owned float that is in the process of We're looking to figure out what the best use of that is and going forward, if that includes as a potential mooring location for our vessel. We'll examine that. We've also been approached by the port. They have interest in having us moor in Cap Sandy. The benefits to the port being increased officer presence beyond what we're already doing now. It helps to have police and fire vessels located in their harbor for risk analysis. So we'll continue to entertain those options before we decide on a permanent mooring location. So I mentioned some of our primary focus being education. We do that through enforcement contacts, educational literature, boating safety inspections, public presentations, and being participants in special events. Our emphasis on education before enforcement encourages compliance from the boating public before we have to engage in the punitive aspects of the enforcement. Part of the education programs, including Water Safety Day on May 15th, Operation Dry Water, which occurs over the July 4th holiday, and that's specifically selected due to the historic increases of on-the-water accidents and deaths attributed to intoxicated individuals operating vessels. Our cold water safety campaign is year-round. As we all know, the waters in our state, especially the water surrounding Anacortes, are extremely cold, and emphasis on shock and wearing life preservers is the focus of that to ensure individuals are able to survive if they do fall in the water while out recreating on their boats. We have a spring boater education campaign. Statistics have shown us that 80% of boating fatalities are linked to a lack of boater safety education. And so focusing on boater safety and education is a preventative strategy to prevent those deaths before they occur on the water. Our National Boating Safety Week occurs Memorial Day weekend, which is historically the kickoff to the boating season. As I mentioned in my emails to you, there's also events that we wouldn't normally think of in Anacortes, because we're mostly thinking of the Puget Sound when we're thinking about boating safety, but we have several lakes around our area which are popular for human-powered vessels, and those account for a disproportionate percentage of boating-related deaths. So our Paddle Safe Week focuses on those smaller crafts, paddle boards, and human-powered vessels where we many times, unfortunately, see the users not wearing life preservers. And of course, our Whale Wise campaign, which is education to the boating public about the impacts of boating in the area that whales also occupy and the associated regulations that come with trying to protect our whales in the Salish Sea. As was mentioned in the Public Safety Committee report by Councilmember Fantini, there are a number of training opportunities that are offered to us through the Washington State Parks. Most of those start off with the individual going through basic law enforcement marine operations. After that, we have boating collision investigation, boating under the influence investigations, and search and rescue for boat operators. These are exclusively available to law enforcement agencies that have approved programs through the state. Our enforcement and accident prevention efforts, as I mentioned previously, We use a variety of methods to encourage boating safety and to deter accidents before they happen through the use of safety inspections, enforcing state and local laws as they apply to boating operation, conducting water-based search and rescue operations, identifying and aiding for the removal of navigational hazards. We respond to complaints and concerns regarding unsafe vessel operation, and we work closely with marine safety partners such as the Coast Guard Auxiliary, school sailing clubs, et cetera, to provide boating safety education and promoting safe practices for boaters in our local waterways. What you're seeing now is an example of our safety inspection form that we go through when we conduct safety inspections. So as we work through the form, one of the things that we're looking for is the equipment, not only that helps ensure a safe voyage, addresses any hazards before the individual's underway, or if they are underway, we recommend that they terminate their voyage to prevent unnecessary risk. But it's also ensuring, PFD use by individuals that are under the age of 16, under certain vessels, under age of 12 for even smaller vessels. They have all the required safety equipment. And then we have the option to give them a warning or a citation if they are found to be deficient in any of the categories on the safety inspection. So currently, the only other marine programs with officers that are trained in basic law enforcement, search and rescue, accident investigation, and boating under the influence investigations that are able to respond to calls in our area are the Skagit County Sheriff's Office and the Swinomish Police Department. Both of those agencies have their patrol boats moored in LaConner, and that creates an extended response time to either the north end of the island or the Skyline area going through the Swinomish Channel. The next closest agency would be the Coast Guard stationed in Bellingham. So because of our geographic location and the location of those other programs, there's a gap in coverage for our local waterways. And this is where our program can fill that gap, and the need for that to be filled is one of the reasons why we have a extremely high level of support from our state parks boating safety program. Is there any questions that I can answer for you?
Mayor Miller?
All right, Ms. Moulton.
Thank you. Thanks, Chief, for this presentation. I really appreciate learning more details about the program and its emphasis on prevention and safety. This really helps fill in some gaps in my knowledge. I have one acronym question, and I think it was OPSG.
Yes.
That's one of the funding agencies, is that right?
So OPSG is Operation Stone Garden. That is the program that I referenced through FEMA, the cross-border smuggling that we've been participating in since 2018.
Okay, we've been participating in that since 2018. Correct. Okay, thanks for clarifying. And then the other thing that I was glad to see is that this will not result in fewer officers. It said on the road specifically, but does that also mean in the forest lands? Does that mean around town? So this is not going to impede or diminish our APD's ability to respond to land-related issues at all?
Not at all. Now, as I stated previously, we've had great success with our hiring efforts in 2025. I see no issue with us being able to staff all the positions that you had just mentioned, including the forest lands, because our school resource officer should not be needed to backfill patrol vacancies to cover for vacations in 2026. We'll have All these individuals completed through field training. We have 2 more that are graduating later this month that will be done with field training long before we get to the summer when we see our peak activity in the forest lands.
Great, that's very good news for all of us. Thank you.
Ben Miller.
Mr. Young?
Chief, as always, I really appreciate the depth of detail that you go into to sort of explain the scope of what goes into the work that, you know, your team does on behalf of the city and keeping us safe. With that said, I'm the kind of council person that lacks numbers too, meaning, you know, from the standpoint of when we talk about working with, let's say, Border Patrol to sort of come through, and those occurrences of how often we have trouble coming through. Those are sort of numbers based that help me understand not only that how hard you're working, but if we're having a crisis of increasing or less. When you mention that the mooring for, you know, for one group is in LaConner, and the time that it takes to get here, and the other than that is Bellingham, right? And for me, what would be also helpful, and I'm hoping you can bring some of that back, is to tell us also the time commitment. You know, if it takes 20 minutes to get from LaConner here, that's a big no-no. If it takes 2 minutes, that's something very different. Those are the type of things that really help me. And also being not a boating person myself, but also have lots of friends that are boaters and trying to understand the thought processes associated with it. And also, you know, I know that the scope of the work of policing is broad, especially being on the island, especially having forest lands, especially given the climate that we're in right now with, you know, we're already talking about, you know, substances abuse. We're talking about the, you know, having a social worker that can help us in all of that. What I'm looking for from you, even though I think that, you know, I'm all aboard on this one, but I'm also looking at when the presentations come to council, give us some numbers too. You know what I mean? Because what it really does, what I'm weighing as a council member is, you know, sometimes we are compared to a Bellingham, or we're compared to a Mount Vernon, or we're compared to some other cities. Anacortes is unique in its own. Yes, we're not, we may not have as much of the same issues as some of those cities, and we're fortunate for it, but we do have it. So in weighing those things for me, what I'm looking for is numbers. And then what those numbers do for me is give credence to your ask to say why this is important for you. You know, we have awards by our police department that, you know, just really lots of places don't have. And that's because of the policing. But when it comes to numbers, what I'm looking for from the staff is just a little bit more of a quantifiable push on numbers so we compare that number to some other city. Okay? Thank you.
Are there numbers specifically for the Marine Patrol?
Well, yeah, you know, I mean, because when we have a discussion and issues come up, and we're comparing ourselves to other cities to show how we are under the average or over the average, or we're fighting, let's say, discussions of merit salaries, you know, the staffing levels. All of those we compare to other cities. And so when we do that comparison to other cities, you know, I've supported all of those. But when we're looking at truly apples to apples, oranges to oranges, Anacortes is uniquely, in my opinion, safer because of what we've got in place. But in giving those numbers, it also allows us to be able to ascertain whether or not they're rising. And as you give those numbers, you tell us why this is important and why we've been able to prevent it these times coming, because it's starting here. And we're saying we're not going to have it that way. So those are things that are helpful for me. But in no way does it reflect on your presentation, because it was wonderful. But I'm just sort of speaking to what I'm looking for.
All right, any other questions on the interlocal to receive from the county?
Mayor Miller?
Mr. Walters.
Chief, during the report out on the Public Safety Committee meeting, I think Mr. Fantini suggested that there was going to be a future briefing on the boat in a couple weeks. Do we mean this? Okay.
That's what this is.
Nothing additional. All right, good. So I, like with Ms. Moulton, I appreciate you saying that with these funding sources that you delineated, that the Marine unit will operate without support from general revenue and will not reduce our minimum staffing levels. Those are threshold questions for me, and so having your answers on those questions is really useful, and I'm pleased to support this moving forward. I think as sort of the lowest priority of our tasks, it makes sense, gives officers some overtime and some exposure to some other things, but also it provides a service to our community. But it doesn't compromise the promise that we made in the public safety levy lid lift to get more response forces onto the road and in the community. So I move we authorize the mayor to sign the interlocal agreement as presented.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Walters and a second by Mr. Fantini to approve the interlocal agreement 26005 APD 001 between City of Anacortes and Skagit County. Additional discussion? Mr. Franciac, vote please.
Ms. Moulton,
Yes.
Ms. Hubick,
Yes.
Mr. Fantini,
Yes.
Mr. Young,
Yes.
Mr. Walters,
Yes.
Ms. Cleland McGrath.
Yes.
Motion carries.
All right, next up is item 6E. 6E is Resolution 3194, City of Anacortes Legislative Priorities 2026, discussion item only. So whenever you're ready, Ms. Shu.
Mayor, council, members of the audience, tonight I'm pleased to begin the discussion in regard to the 2026 City of Anacortes legislative priorities. Sorry, it's not moving forward. Okay, there we go. And so this will be a short year of the legislature, and there'll be a 60-day period. It's the second year of the biennium. And I bring that up because it means that any bills that were introduced last year still have the ability, and didn't move forward, still have the ability to move forward in 2026. And so maybe different than in past years, you'll see that there's some information within the priorities as they're presented about different bill references. And some of those are ones that have passed, and there's some of those that we would like to perhaps continue, their request that those continue to be supported. So because the session begins on January 12th, I'm hopeful that we'll have the legislative priorities complete before the end of the year. And I know that we've probably all been seeing that there have been recent shortfalls from the budget, and that there's also been some concerns about revenue projections. So those items will definitely need to be addressed in the 26th legislature. As in past years, the city's legislative priorities do closely align with the Association of Washington Cities, but there are some that are very independent. The first item that I bring for your consideration is the Community Event Center. The language is just the city priority, and that would be to pursue inclusion in the next capital budget cycle and state grant programs supporting community, tourism, and cultural facilities seeking financial support for a joint project with the City of Anacortes and Port of Anacortes for the design and construction of a new community event center. Feel free to provide any feedback, comment, otherwise I'll just continue to move through them. We also want to continue to work on our behavioral health treatment capacity. So our priority is for that continued and expanded capital and operating investments that will increase community behavioral health treatment capacity for both startups and operational funding for local facilities. And I make reference to the operating budget from 25 to 27 because it did increase funding for non-Medicaid behavioral health services, crisis response, residential treatment, and workforce support initiatives. I include this because I just want to acknowledge that we appreciate the work that was done in last year's legislative session.
Mayor Miller.
Ms. Moulton.
Thank you, Ms. Shu. So as we put it as a city priority, it seems to me in the past, sometimes legislative priorities have been specific. Would we want to specify this having to do with the county and county resources and North Star, or do we want to leave it general like this? Can you refresh my memory on that?
I think that we can do it either way. So, but you are correct. In years past, we have identified that in support of like Skagit County's North Star program or different programs that we'd ask for them to support that continued funding.
I wonder if this would be an opportunity for us then to coordinate with some of our neighboring cities and the county itself and use our voices in unison to strengthen all of our case for this effort.
Yeah, that's exactly what the council did last year with the Star Center and all the other councils. And
Yes.
as you probably recall, all the other councils, and it was successful to get funding out of the state for that. So certainly up to council how you want to word that.
Mayor Miller,
Mr. Walters.
do we have copies of Skagit County's or the Port of Anacortes' legislative priorities, either draft or final forms?
I have not received those. Typically do when I'm putting these together, but no, I've not received those this year.
Maybe if we can check with them again, maybe we would want to update our language based on their language.
Happy to do that when I bring that back. In regard to indigent defense funding workload support, last year there was a bill that was presented that would have proposed a 50% state and local cost-sharing model. That bill did receive hearings, but it didn't move forward. And instead, what they did is they provided some grant funding through the Office of Public Defense. So the reason I put it as a city priority this year is that we would advocate for reintroduction and passage of legislation that would increase the state's responsibility for our indigent defense services and help support the workload reductions that are coming over the next 9 years now.
Mayor Miller.
Mr. Fantini.
I had a question just kind of about order of how these are listed, because this to me, I think that all of these, even though we haven't gotten through all of them yet, are good priorities to have, and I definitely agree with Ms. Moulton that coordinating that with the other members of our county would make it stronger. But I feel like things like this and state highway maintenance within cities with some, which we haven't gotten to yet, but is something that we do, is important, kind of takes a little bit of precedence for me over the event center, just based on what it could cause for us if we don't get those other two legislative priorities through. So I'm just curious about how order was decided.
And right now, they're not in any particular priority order. They're just kind of listed, and that would be part of pulling that together as a final project. But so good feedback. So if something you believe it to be a higher priority or a lower priority, I'd like that feedback from you. The next item is preserving state shared revenue, and this is just more of a reminder to the legislature in a very tight economic environment that we really do need to continue to have that state shared revenue, and really aren't looking for any diversions from what is already shared with us. And also just to acknowledge and thank that the operating budget in 2025 did maintain all of the existing state shared revenues. And so I know that in years past, we've been talking year after year about the Public Works Trust Fund and then how the different portions of that have been kind of diverted away.
Mayor Miller?
Ms. Moulton?
I know there have been issues with the Public Works Fund over the years, and I've sort of lost track of where that is. I think it was bolstered again in the last year or two. Is that something that could fit in here too? I don't know if that's a concern or not. I feel like you might know if we're worried about that or not, because I know that was ongoing for several years. They diverted that money to other places.
I think that there's pretty clear understanding at the legislature that the cities are very concerned about that revolving loan fund pays for itself. There haven't been any defaults on it over the years, and it becomes a very nice way for people, or for communities to take low interest loans to be able to do important capital projects. So I think that this year there's not a concern that is on the docket for splitting.
Thank you.
We're also asking, or just trying to make as a priority, public notice modernization. So right now we are required to have all of our notices go through our newspaper of record. And so we're just asking that they look to find ways to modernize that, which could be significant cost savings to the organization. So this would be an amendment to an RCW. There isn't an actual bill that's been associated with that in the past, but a good opportunity.
Mayor Miller?
Mr. Walters?
I'm a little hesitant about this one, actually. I'm very much in favor of modernization and streamlining, but I expect that the Newspapers Association would oppose this change, and I don't feel the need to be in opposition to the newspapers. I would definitely put this at the bottom of the list.
Mayor Miller?
Ms. Moulton?
This also reminds me of the point that Councilmember Fantini makes occasionally about how many of our residents still receive their utility bills through the mail and through the paper, and even people who read the paper digitally, of which I know quite a few. So I would concur that this would not be, I don't know if it's on my list at all, actually, but definitely not high on it.
Mayor Miller?
Mr. Fantini?
I am definitely for public notice modernization, but I'm not sure if we're ready to approach that yet. I think there's a lot of nuance that goes into it, sort of like with what Mr. Walters brought up about the newspapers. And so while I am in favor of it, I'm not sure if it's the right time to approach it. So I would be okay with striking this one for the time being. But what I also have noticed going through here is there's something for me that's missing from the legislative priorities, and that is that a lot of times we spend a lot of time talking about affordable housing. We spend a lot of time talking about those types of regulations. And one of the four high priorities for AWC and many other cities is providing time to implement state housing legislation and increasing funding tools. And I would like to see something like that maybe in place of this, because I think about my time on council already, and in the 2 short years that I've been here, we've seen so many changes come down on housing from the legislature. And I think that the legislative focus needs to go a little bit beyond zoning and planning. There's other factors that limit housing supply and affordability, such as financing, land availability, material costs, and workforce. And I think that if we supported a priority that provided time to implement state housing legislation that I feel like we're still kind of catching up on, rather than more additional changes to housing. I think that's also some feedback that we've heard from developers as well, that there have been so many changes that they haven't been able to catch up and figure out how to make it all work yet. So I would be really curious and just wondering if there's any other council members that see something like that as being useful, or some way to address affordable housing in our legislative priorities.
Mayor Miller,
Ms. Hubick?
I don't want to be the rain on everybody's parade, but I do want to point out that we are headed into a very, 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 very difficult budget season. Governor Ferguson is going to propose what he has been reiterating is an all-cuts budget. All cuts. He is not considering new revenue sources. And granted, that is for the state. I don't think that he has outright said that he would veto or try to kill legislation that provides cities more flexibility or municipalities in raising their own revenue. But considering that grant funding agencies like the Department of Commerce and the Washington State Housing Finance Commission and things like that are probably gonna face some cuts. I don't know how he's gonna pick. I wouldn't wanna be in that position, but I want us to recognize that, one, yes, you don't get what you don't ask for, but to set very realistic expectations. I think that saying things like, maybe extending the times required for municipalities to implement changes in legislation, because you're not wrong. There's a lot of changes that are happening. There's a lot of changes that are happening in the housing sphere specifically. But I think other than indigent funding and things that have been pointed out, asking for too much is just not going to get us anywhere. It sounds super doom and gloom, I'm sorry, but I mean, the legislature met Wednesday, Thursday, Friday for committee days. It's on TVW. You can search for appropriations, you can search for Ways and Means, you can search for any of the fiscal committees, and it just doesn't sound good at all. So I'm sorry, but Ms. Shu's done a great job on this, and it's gonna be a really, really hard year.
So back to the, I think I heard consensus for striking the, let's not poke our local paper across the street, striking that one? For now, yes.
In regard to the housing, the decision to not include it actually was consistent with the Association of Washington Cities priorities, because they basically said, just give us some time to catch up to where things are. And I didn't know if I needed to say that out loud or I didn't know if we needed to say that as a proposal, like just give us time, because I think we're doing a lot of land use work. I mean, the 15th is going to be huge.
It's hard to word stop passing legislation that we're trying to keep up. Leave us alone for a few seconds.
Mayor Miller?
Mr. Walters.
I also don't think we need to say that, because we will have accomplished by the end of the year all the things that we are supposed to do. And other cities will not have done that, and they will miss their deadlines, and we need them to comply with those deadlines and be as up-to-date as cities that are in compliance, because we're all in this together, and no one city can solve the housing problem. So I don't support AWC's position of asking for time to implement existing legislation. I do think that the legislature could do a better job of, when they pass new rules, having the Department of Commerce generate model ordinances before the effective date of the new rules, because it's pretty inefficient to have 200 cities write their own ordinances 200 times, but I don't think that's something that we need to include here. Despite what Ms. Hubick said about not having any money, which I take to be true, I do think that we should be upfront asking for money for Commercial Avenue every time we can, until we've already spent that money on it, because it is their road. And I don't think that that's explicitly addressed in the next one, the state highway maintenance, and I think it should be up front. I would put it up front along with the event facility, because it's asking for money just for Anacortes, and so it is still less expensive than trying to rejigger the entire state funding system for various things. So I would put those two up front.
Mayor Miller?
Mr. Fantini.
I was specifically thinking of this one with what Mr. Walters said about adding in Commercial Avenue as our number one priority. I almost feel like that was our number one priority last year. And also, you know, there has been some movement to try to help with some of the state highways. There have been some interesting projects that have been packaged together. So I do think this one could gain, even in the doom and gloom season, I do think this one could gain a lot of traction, and I would be interested in this as our first priority.
But then I heard some more specifics to bring it back to our State Route 20 slash,
Yes, and so in regard to the state highway maintenance within cities, we have specifically reached out, and what the state did last year is that they asked for the 2013 MOU between the Association of Washington Cities and WashDOT to be reviewed. And so we have reached out to the Association of Washington Cities and said, the city of Anacortes has Commercial Avenue running, which is also State Highway 20, going as our main commercial core, and that we would like to participate in that advisory committee as they're talking about the construction operations and maintenance with those city streets that are also state highways. So we've reached out and asked to be involved with that. That seemed to be the kind of the middle ground out of last year's legislation to be able to try and continue to address this. And we have really good language in place just with letters that Mayor Miller sent last year and trying to get additional support and to be able to acknowledge that Commercial Avenue is also in First Highway 20.
Mayor Miller.
Mr. Walters.
And to put a little finer point on it, I think our objective as the city of Anacortes is to get money for that particular project. If the state also reconfigures the way they budget for highways throughout the state, that would be great for the rest of the state. That should be AWC's position. But I think our position is simply fund the one that's within our jurisdiction. So I think where we ought to go here is sort of drop this one or make reference to it, but really our priority is just to fund the one road, Highway 20.
Be happy to go back to the language that we were using last year, too.
Ms. Hubick?
I also just want to remind folks that we do have 2 of your 3 elected officials at the state that sit on the transportation committees, both in the House and the Senate, so this would be a great one to move up to the top.
Yes, and Mr. Fantini, remember when I just asked for a little bit of love when we were down there, that the council is committed to putting our local tax dollars into the state highway, and just a little something for the effort would be appreciated. So, again, I appreciate the council's support on that one.
Mayor Miller.
Mr. Young, and then Ms. Cleveland McGrath.
Well, you know, I really appreciate the effort that you've put into this. It's always a lot of work that I know you work incredibly hard on behalf of the city. I do. I also wanted to take this moment to commend Ms. Hubick for bringing wise wisdom to the table that sometimes come just simply being in the midst. And that has truly been so helpful for us as a city. And I'm, looking forward to continuing that, although you may not be on the dais with us. But, really I'm really saying a big thank you for the work that you've put in on all of our behalves, all of the cities, but in particular our city. And just thank you for how you've done it. Grace, style, and even in the wisdom that we may not have right now about how to approach it, because you're in the belly of the beast sort of listening, our approach can be tempered or exaggerated based upon some additional knowledge we may not all have. So I wanted to send a bravo and thank you, and also a thank you to you too, Ms. Shu. Thank you.
Ms. Cleveland McGrath.
Thank you. I just wanted to highlight the Community Event Center and making sure that we are able to include the fact that we're working with the port, that this is an opportunity to leverage our LTAC dollars in a way that will activate currently undeveloped property around the port, whether it's the potential hotel in the dog park, and then a couple of those undeveloped pads. I think that when we're having this revenue shortage and the state's feeling it and all the cities are feeling it, this is our way of, it's not just for, cultural facilities, supporting the community, yes, tourism, but this is a way to try to drive tax dollars, sales tax, get more people heads in beds. I think that is a really strong argument for saying, give us $400,000 because we're going to leverage it into something that's much larger. So if there's some way that we can maybe add some of those higher level points into the next version, I think would be helpful.
Great feedback, thank you.
Yes,
Mayor-
those sales tax dollars that get generated get collected by the state as well. So a lot, the vast majority, in fact. So yes,
Mayor Miller?
Mr. Fantini.
Yeah, I want to second exactly what Ms. Cleland McGrath just said. Sorry, I'm a little tongue-tied tonight. Mainly also, too, because, as we continue to move down the event center path, LTAC funding is going to be very, very key to making that happen. And there is a strong contingent of other cities and other municipalities that are lobbying to allow those LTAC funds to be used for other uses, such as workforce housing, things like that. So I think it's a really good point to bring up that we can use our funds to stimulate our economy. So, other cities might not be doing it, but it's really important for us to be able to.
All right, all great points. I'm trying to help Ms. Shu collect the data to bring something back. Ms. Shu?
Very, very helpful, thank you. The next item I think that you may not want to move forward with, but one of the things that we're talking about is just that we basically had an issue this year where we had federal funds that were held up at the state. Which had an impact on the city. So this is just asking for some streamlining of that process, that when federal funds go to the state to then be allocated to the cities, that they are much more efficiently processed than what we had to do with. Maybe not a huge item, because it may not happen that we always have a lot of federal funds that are being allocated to us, but it was something that was impactful, looking back, that I thought was helpful because we could have an actual example to talk about.
Mayor Miller?
Mr. Fantini?
This is one of those ones that I kind of wonder about, like, do we need to include it, kind of to Ms. Hubick's point, where it's a doom and gloom, maybe less priorities with more emphasis would be great. Just curious how everyone else feels about that.
Mayor Miller,
Ms. Hubick?
I could see this being excluded from the list, but also just brought up in conversations that any council member could schedule with their elected officials during the interim, or if they knock on your door. It is going to be an election season next year.
Yeah.
Mayor Miller?
Mr. Young?
Thank you. I think, again, Anacortes has some wonderful advantages to use and accentuate the benefits of being here. One in particular, I know we're working on trying to get the roads done and, all of the push and pull associated with it. But I think one of the key points that Ms. Hubick so subtly brought up once again was the fact of our legislative people that we have representing us. I mean, we're fortunate to have them, and I think you pointed out that Ms. Hubick brilliantly pointed out that there were 2 people on the Transportation Committee. I think our work can begin there and how we can help them too. So I'm just saying, I appreciate what you're doing. I appreciate this going forward, but let us not keep everything here as we can push our legislative contingent to hopefully give us a greater benefit.
Thank you.
Yeah, a little more background on that. I feel like council's okay with not having this one on there, so maybe I don't need to provide the background. Very good. Okay, next.
The next item is a very large concern from a fiscal standpoint for the city of Anacortes, and that is the nutrient general permit because of the significant impacts it has for the wastewater treatment plant. And so we're just wanting what we're trying to ask is that state rulemaking incorporate local affordability, realistic timelines, and cost-benefit analysis. And this is something that we would need funding on for nutrient reduction infrastructure and compliance support in the future. Just to give a status update in terms of where things are from a regulatory standpoint, the Department of Ecology is proposing new regulations for all wastewater plants related to their nutrient discharges that will result in very significant plant upgrades for our wastewater treatment facility. This one is more of again, like, hey, we need you to be aware of this, but I would recommend that you keep this in.
Mayor Miller?
Mr. Fantini?
I would also recommend that we keep this in, just judging on all the reports that we've got on what we're going to be needing to do without any increased regulations at our water treatment plant and whatnot. I think this is a good one for us.
All right. Anything else? Oh, go ahead.
The next item is really just talking about our community programs that help support food for our seniors. And just to give a little bit of background, in September alone, Meals on Wheels in Anacortes had delivered 2,379 meals. And there were 912 meals actually served at the Anacortes Senior Activity Center. The impacts were right now that is funded by the county and also through a lot of work to try and raise funds for that program, but it could have very significant impacts for our senior communities throughout Skagit County. I don't know if it's something that you want to include here, but it's certainly impactful, and it's something that I think we may want to consider.
Thoughts, council?
Mayor Miller?
Mr. Walters?
This one, again, I think is certainly an important issue for Skagit County. However, it's a request, it seems to me, to fund this at a statewide level, which, to Ms. Hubig's point, maybe is not going to be entertained. I'm not sure that the legislature is the right entity to try to deal with this, because this is at least in part federally funded. I would like to fix the problem, but I don't know if this is the right venue.
Mayor Miller.
Ms. Hubig?
So the Agriculture and Natural Resources Committee in the House actually spent their entire committee on Friday talking about food systems and food deserts and providing meals for seniors. It was really interesting for me. It probably wasn't really interesting to the general public, but just know that even if we don't mention this, this is something that at the very least is in front of an entire committee and people are paying attention to it. And one thing that I thought was really interesting is that it was farmers and it was retailers and independent small retailers, as well as like big people like Fred Meyers and Safeway talking about food safety and the food system. So it's a conversation that's being had. I don't know that it's something that we specifically need to include here, though.
Mayor Miller?
Mr. Fantini?
Yeah, this is a big problem and definitely one that we need to get fixed. What I'm really, I also agree that this is probably not the path for us to take, but I just wanted to call out and thank, I know myself as well as Mr. Walters are on, for a little while anyway, on the Senior Center Foundation board. And there is a lot of work going on right now at our Senior Center with that board to address and fix what is going to be a very big problem for us in Anacortes, just with the amount of meals that go out. So even, to Ms. Hubick's point, it's being talked about in committee. I think there's also a big local push that is happening to try to solve that issue as well. So maybe not, to avoid clouding the other legislative priorities, we might not need to include it.
I very much appreciate the conversation tonight. I think that it really has helped identify things that we want to see in our legislative priorities and to help sharpen that and to bring it into a funnel. But I think that it also has been helpful to think about items that we can just include as talking points when we do go to meet with our legislators, and the city action days are in January. So looking forward to that opportunity to maybe present some of those local things that didn't necessarily make it into the legislative priorities. So I've got my orders to go back and continue to refine these, and we'll get them ready for presentation.
Yeah, and we're talking next council meeting, right?
That's my goal.
Okay, so that, I said that out loud for council, so, if there's something, I think last year you all passed it out on the 19th of December. So the staff's working hard to get this together. So if you got any last minute inputs, please get those in, and we'll get it before council next week.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, item 6F, this is a SEPA threshold determination, appeal of ordinance 5013 and ordinance 5014. And I think Ms. Swetnam is just going to remind the council of the procedures. And with that, I'll turn it over to Ms. Swetnam.
Thanks, Mayor Miller. I'm just introducing this and just going to provide you all the background, just reiterating what was in the agenda bill as the city attorney for the council, not the attorney for Mr. Coleman in the planning department. So the appeal before council tonight is an appeal of a SEPA threshold determination of non-significance that was issued on the comprehensive plan and development regulation updates that are in ordinance 5013 and 5014 for council's consideration. These are non-project actions. John Coleman issued a determination of non-significance on September 10th, and it was appealed by Ian Muntz on September 11th. So the process for hearing that appeal comes from Anacortes Municipal Code, Section 1804250, that dictates that SEPA appeals for non-project actions are heard by City Council, who may consolidate the consideration of the appeal with the decision on the underlying proposal. Council adopted procedures for these appeals in Resolution 3189 in November, and it clarified that council may decide these appeals on the written submissions of the parties. The standard of review that was adopted for that evaluation says that 1, the original administrative decision is presumptively correct, 2, the appellant has the burden of proof, and 3, that the appellant must show that the original administrative decision was clearly erroneous. So sent to council tonight, you've received the appeal filed by Mr. Muntz. You've received his brief. You received, I believe it was 9 exhibits from him. You've also received the city staff's answer to the appeal, a supplement to that answer, the declaration of Libby Grage, the determination of non-significance itself, and exhibits A, B, and C from the city. So the appellant is asking council to overturn the determination of non-significance and require the city to perform an environmental impact statement, or EIS. City staff are recommending that the appeal be denied. So whatever decision council makes tonight, it should direct staff to prepare findings of fact and conclusions of law consistent with that decision, with that document, to come back for approval next week. So since there won't be any arguments from the parties, I'm gonna turn it back over to the mayor and encourage council to deliberate and make a decision based on the materials provided. Thank you.
Thank you. So again, as a reminder to council, the procedures that you all set up on the 10th in Resolution 3189 is reviewing the written material, which means you had to do your homework or you're reading rapidly now. And with that, I'm open for any deliberation or whatever you want to discuss on that. But it's reviewing the written material and making the decision based on that.
Mayor Miller?
Mr. Walters.
I've read the pleadings and find the appellant's arguments unpersuasive. I move to direct staff to prepare findings of fact and conclusions of law consistent with the denial of the appeal for our December 15th council meeting, which is when we also expect to review the comp plan and development regulations for potentially approving that update.
Second.
Okay, a motion by Mr. Walters and a second by Ms. Moulton to deny the appeal and have staff review and provide findings of fact to present at the conclusions and findings of fact to present at the 15 December council meeting. Additional discussion? Mr. Franciac, vote please.
Ms. Hubick.
Yes.
Mr. Fantini.
Yes.
Mr. Young.
Yes.
Mr. Walters.
Yes.
Ms. Cleland McGrath.
Yes.
Ms. Moulton.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, thank you, and no further business for the council. I'll adjourn tonight's meeting. Thank you.